There is a famous movie called While You Were Sleeping. It is about what happens when a man who's stricken with some kind of illness is asleep. All the things that have gone on around him. And while we were sleeping, playing the crate challenge or doing whatever silly thing we were doing, the murderers of Elijah McClain, a young 23-year-old kid in Aurora, Illinois, the kid obviously he was a good kid by all accounts. He loved music. He was walking home. The rural police officers pulled him over. And they used ketamine and a chokehold because I guess he wasn't doing what they wanted him to do. I guess him in conjunction with the ambulance, they thought he was on some kind of drugs. Not only did they drug him, but they put him in a carotid chokehold, right? He dies. And that happens so too often to recount. But what galls me the most is originally the Adams County District Attorney Dave Young. Remember that Dave Young was the district attorney in the area we're talking about, in Aurora, Colorado. Initially declined to bring criminal charges. He couldn't see enough evidence. Isn't that always the way? That's always the way. If you remember what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, 3 times they declined criminal charges. If you look at what happened with George Floyd, they declined criminal charges. If you look at what's happening now, Breonna Taylor, we never did get criminal charges, but we think, I'm not going to give up hope. I think that new eyes and a fresh perspective could even change that outcome. What did they see this time that they didn't before? What did they see this time, 2 years later, a little over 2 years later, that they didn't before? Wasn't he just as dead? Wasn't they just as guilty as taking his life? What did they see? What all of a sudden made them come to this conclusion that the videotape or the evidence that was all before everyone's eyes was so much more pertinent, so much more relevant now? What mysticism happened? What did they do that all of a sudden made them know that a murder was actually a murder? Because what I think happens all too often is, even if you look at what's happening with the young woman who was slain in Fort Worth, we still don't have criminal charges in. What takes them so long to see what everyone else has seen, to finally come to a conclusion that these people, whether they wear uniforms or not, are guilty of murder? Elijah McClain should not be here. He was a whimsical kid. As a matter of fact, he died saying, "But I'm a good kid." And he was by all accounts. So police officers think something suspicious. They pull him over. Not only do they drug him, but they choke him to death. And it takes 2 years for you to decide that that was actually murder. 2 years. And this is not just an isolated incident. It is a all too common refrain. And I think what tends to happen is they know that we get distracted. They know that maybe our eyes aren't on the prize right now. And that so many things like this happen that it really is hard to keep up with. Like even right now, many of you are rolling over Elijah McClain's name in your head and you can't quite place it, not because you're glad, but because there have been so many of them that it's hard to keep up with. We don't know who we're hashtagging for right now. What is it that they can't see a murder when it's right there before them? And what takes so many years to come around to the fact that these men and women in uniforms murdered a man without provocation? What is it they see? Or more importantly, what is it they don't see? And I suspect what it is they don't see is a human being. I suspect what it is they don't see is somebody they deem worthy of life. I suspect that they oftentimes give those officers, or in this case paramedics and officers, time to get their story together. And I think that sometimes they try to hold off so that it isn't so fresh in our memories. We do not have time to be distracted. We do not have time to drop the ball. Because when we do, our children, our women, our brothers and sisters are slain with no one being caught to account. While you're playing the crate challenge, they're putting people in crypts. While you're distracted doing whatever inane, silly thing you do, they know they can get away with things like this. And I understand how distractive it is, how much has gone on. But those people deserve to be in jail. They deserve to be indicted the first time they saw it. What is it that makes them have to look over and over and over again? What makes them look is that they think we're looking away. What makes them have to look all over again is they think we'll look past it. But we must always watch them, because they never see us die. They see someone doing their job. And if we're distracted, they oftentimes, more than not, will get away with it. Rest in peace, Elijah McClain. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.